Now let's have a look at some of the basic commands that are available for this sort of thing. We have some security related commands that include who am I, ID, SU, and new group. And I'll just give you a brief demonstration of how each of those is used. We'll start with who am I. Who am I is a very simple program, or it's actually the who program that is running with the specific arguments of am I, and we run it and we find out that we are running on a particular computer called the following. That's everything up to the exclamation mark, followed by our username, which is possibly the most important thing here. mvirtue is my username, followed by the terminal that I'm logged in on, which is PTS/31, which may or may not mean anything to you, and the date that I logged in, which was June 26th, 12:31, which is about half an hour ago now. This command is useful if you ever walk up to a terminal where somebody's logged in and you need to know exactly who is logged in, or what the terminal identifier is, or how long the person has been logged in. Let's move on. We'll have a look at the ID command. ID is also a simple command. Just type in ID and you get the following information. You learn again your username, and you also learn your user number. Every username has its own number. In this case, mvirtue is 3040. But now I also find out my group ID, which is users. So I am currently thought of as being logged in as part of the users group, which happens to be group ID 100. Now the third thing on the list is called groups. And that is actually a list of comma-separated group names and group IDs of which I am a member. But it turns out that I'm only a member of one group, which is the users group. If I was a member, say, also of the sales group, then I would see 100 brackets users followed by, say, 200 brackets sales, separated by commas. So I guess we need to establish the relationship between your current group ID and the list of groups. And the relationship is this. Groups lists all the groups that you are considered to be a member of, and your current group ID shows the current group that the system is treating you as a member of. I'll give you a concrete example of this, something you can hopefully relate to. Let's say my groups were both sales and managers, because I am one of the managers of the company and I'm also part of the sales team. Perhaps I'm the sales manager. In this situation, when I log into the system, I will be automatically logged in as one of those two groups. Let's say it's sales. That will be my automatic current group ID when I log in. But then suppose I wish to access some of the files or programs on the system that are restricted only to managers. What I conceptually have to do is take off my sales hat and put on my manager's hat. In other words, I have to switch my group from that of sales to that of managers. I do that using the new group command. I would say new group managers or something like that and press enter. Naturally, I'm only allowed to switch between the various groups of which I am a member. I can try this command. It's probably not going to work, not only because I'm not a member of the managers group, but there probably isn't a managers group. So there we go, no such group. So the bottom line is, if you're a member of several groups, you might find yourself using the new group command several times during the day to essentially, if you like, switch hats. Finally, it is actually possible, if you like, to assume the identity of somebody else on the system. Needless to say, the only way of doing that is if you know their password. You also have to obviously know their username. Obviously, if you know their username and password, you could just log in as them if you chose to. But it's sometimes a hassle to interrupt what you're doing at the moment by logging out and logging in as somebody else. So instead, the system provides a command called SU, which is actually short for super user, even though we are not necessarily attempting to become super user. It's SU and then you type in the username that you're trying to become. So I know of another user on this system who allows me to use their password by the name of Avon, So I type su avon, press enter, I'm asked for a password which I will now type in, and now I am known as Avon at this particular computer, but I have not moved. I'm still in the same home directory. I'm not really logged in as them, I'm just pretending to be them. If I logged in as them, I'd end up in their home directory, not in my own. So now I can do things that they have permission to do, but I cannot do things that I have permission to do. What's actually happened here is I have another shell running temporarily. My first shell has been momentarily suspended, and a second shell has kicked into place, in which I am now called Avon. In the original shell I was known as mVirtue, and had all of mVirtue's permissions. That shell has been suspended momentarily. Now I'm in a new shell where I have all of Avon's permissions. So for example, I could do an ls -l, and I don't even have permission to do an ls -l in this directory. When I'm finished being Avon, I can simply type exit, which will exit the current shell. Remember we talked about exit for the logout command? Well, I'm now back to being mVirtue, and now I can do an ls -l without any trouble. Now if I want to log in as Avon in the same manner and do an su, instead of su Avon I can do su dash space Avon. Notice the spaces around the dash before and after. And what that will do is we'll actually do a full simulation of Avon logging in. So I'll end up in his home directory. So the home directory is home Avon here, and I can do an ls -l, and there's his set of files, which is of course different to my set of files. Notice that he is a member of the same group. I can run the id command now and find much the same information as if I was mVirtue. Again, I simply use exit to return to being me.